Right now at 6, how Portland Public Schools just ended up with a $10 million surprise.
Wait, what does that mean? Are people losing their jobs mid-year?
Plus, the city should not forever damage downtown by closing the Keller.
How some Portlanders are fighting to keep the auditorium open for generations to come.
And later, incubating hope.
This is a family-safe environment. We want people to bring their kids. They want them to bring their children, their babies.
How aspiring entrepreneurs are using abandoned Old Town office space to birth new businesses.
But our top story tonight, Portland Public Schools says it is $10 million short for this year's budget. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Pitawanich.
And I'm David Molko. That's on top of a $50 million budget hole they already knew about for next year. Let's get right to John Adams live at Southwest Portland's Lincoln High. I mean, John, talk about an unwelcome surprise. What's going on here?
David, that's exactly right. So essentially what happened is the first half of the school year was just way more expensive than PPS thought it was going to be due to a number of factors. Now, this letter was supposed to clarify for staff what exactly was going on with the budget, but the teacher I spoke with today said it led to more questions than answers. Confusion and uncertainty for staff members at Portland Public Schools after a letter from district leadership details a $10 million budget gap for the remainder of this fiscal year.
I feel like it left me and a lot of my colleagues with a lot more questions about what's happening.
Emily Roach, a substitute teacher with the district, says the contents of the letter caught her and her coworkers off guard. It says plans to reduce the workforce this spring due to next year's budget gap could be accelerated.
Wait, what does that mean? Are people losing their jobs mid-year?
The district declined on-camera interviews for this story, but did provide a copy of the letter. It blames the deficit on higher than expected transportation and safety costs, unanticipated costs from federal lawsuits, and a decline in tax revenue due to falling commercial property values. The district says it will immediately pause spending in all budgets, tighten spending on substitutes and overtime, and cancel a professional development day on March 2nd. This all comes just weeks after district leadership announced a $50 million budget gap for next fiscal year. Roach says the morale of staff members has taken a hit because of this news.
As we see cut after cut after cut, it's hard to hang on to that because people are scared. People are nervous about their jobs, their livelihood.
And believes the situation has been made more difficult by a lack of answers from district leadership.
It's hard. It's hard to establish any kind of trust between teachers and classified staff and then and the district.
We should learn more about next year's fiscal budget for Portland Public Schools sometime in late April. Now, the district previously said they could be forced to cut up to 300 positions because of that budget gap for this upcoming fiscal year. David, Christine.
John Adams reporting live outside Lincoln High. Thank you, John. Meantime, a bill in Salem that would have fundamentally changed how education is funded across Oregon is not moving forward this session. Right now, districts use something called the quality education model to determine funding. But the bill from Hillsborough's Senator Janine Solman would put neutral experts in charge of calculating education costs, taking a hard look at differing costs between rural and urban districts and creating more predictable funding. Solman said it's time for change, while many parents pushed back.
We cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results.
It focuses just on the average student, but we know that we have many students with disabilities, students that are English learners and new to the country. Students of color often do a lot worse than the average student, and this bill doesn't acknowledge that.
Even though the bill failed to advance this year, there is a chance that it could come around again next year when there's more time to work on it during the long session.
Well, staying in Salem, in your headlines, Oregon Republicans say a bill that would put transportation taxes on the ballot this May instead of November should in fact be dead. That's because today was the deadline recommended by the Secretary of State for it to be passed to give voters enough time to submit arguments for the voter pamphlet. But technically, it doesn't have to be a done deal until the end of the session, which is March 8th, which means Democrats appear to still be pushing it forward. It already passed the Senate and is scheduled for a third hearing and possibly a vote in the House tomorrow.
Also in Salem today, a public hearing on the bill that would steer public money toward Moda Center renovations and, in theory, keep the Trailblazers in the Rose City. The bill would create the framework for shared ownership of Moda between the state and the city of Portland, with money coming from taxes on players and performers. The city is also expected to contribute around $400 million over 20 years.
But I want to state clearly today that the Portland City Council is committed to the project and to the funding that we will need to contribute to it.
From the beginning, our goal has been straightforward: to pursue a market rate partnership that renovates Moda Center and keeps the Blazers in Portland for the long term.
The team's current lease expires in 2030. As part of this bill, the team has to commit to stay for a minimum of 20 more years. The legislation remains in a Senate committee, but we could see a vote to send it to the Senate floor tomorrow.
In Clark County, a man has been charged with murder after a woman's body was found on state forest land on Valentine's Day. Investigators say the victim is 34-year-old Tori Garza. Detectives say they used her cell phone data and surveillance video to identify her suspected killer, 66-year-old Andrew Brunette. Officers arrested him in Woodland on Tuesday.
In Portland, officers got quite the surprise when responding to a car that crashed into a cement mailbox. The man behind the wheel near Northeast 139th and East Burnside was unconscious, and when officers pulled him out, police say they found a small arsenal in the car. You can see it here. It includes 2 unregistered AR-15 style rifles, ammunition, and they say drugs. The driver now faces a list of charges, including 5 counts of being a felon in possession of a firearm.
And Portland City Council has unanimously approved a plan to rezone 19 properties to allow nonprofits and public agencies to expand or preserve affordable housing. The idea here, to remove red tape for those organizations to fast-track projects on land they already own. Now, when our team visited one of those properties in the Centennial neighborhood, longtime neighbors expressed some concern, saying they've watched the existing affordable housing complex attract homelessness and crime.
We had a homeless camp in our backyard for almost 2 years with no city input or help.
My fears are that more people are going to come into our yard. For instance, a month and a half ago, we had a guy screaming on our front step.
Just a couple perspectives there in one spot, right? Another project includes 16 homes in the Cully neighborhood to be developed by Habitat for Humanity. Matt?
All right, David. Boy, it turned into a really beautiful afternoon. We've got some clouds forming up a bit right now. The sun just went down about 13 minutes ago. This is the view from our sky cam at the Reserve Golf Course. You see the clearing to the west and to the south. We're down to 48 right now after making the 50s today. But this is how the day started for many of us, with fog. This is from Newburgh. Todd Klingler taking this very artistic shot of a western oak. Beautiful scene there, and then the fog all burned away and left us with a beautiful day that we have been enjoying. But it was cold this morning, down below freezing in Hillsborough, Vancouver. Troutdale, Portland dropped to 33. Tomorrow morning should be colder because we're starting out simply with a colder air mass and more clearing compared to this time yesterday when we still had rain and clouds falling. But again, this was a chilly morning, and tomorrow morning will be as cold or colder. Now, the fog patch was a little bit broken up by the scattered clouds that came in. I expect it to be a little bit more extensive tomorrow, but some places, because of the cooling, we'll see frost instead of fog. Either way, we'll end up with sunshine in the afternoon and some really great weather as we go into the weekend. Some scattered clouds on Saturday, and wait to see how warm it gets as we begin the new month of March on Sunday, guys.
Sounds good to me. Thank you, Matt. Developing tonight, calls to save the Keller Auditorium as Portlanders gathered downtown this morning to make their voices heard.
This comes after a city commission study found the city only needs one venue of its size, with a plan in the works, of course, for a brand new concert hall on the Portland State campus. Jake Coulter is live downtown with the details. Jake?
Yeah, David and Christine, Save the Keller rallygoers believe it's in the downtown's best interest to invest in the Keller, including a nearby business owner I spoke with who says show nights are her restaurant's moneymakers.
The city should not forever damage downtown by closing the Keller.
Dozens of concerned citizens rallied outside the Keller Auditorium with Save the Keller and Don't Be Wicked to the Keller signs Wednesday morning. Murata Japanese restaurant owner Tamaki Murata being one of them.
On show days, it's really a our moneymaker nights. We are just packed with reservations. We're fully reserved on show days.
The family-owned restaurant has sat across from the Keller for nearly 40 years. Murata says the restaurant would take a hit if the Keller closed.
Yeah, the foot traffic would be probably 0 to none over here, especially during night times. It can be a little sparse at times.
People love the Keller. The parking is available here, mass transit's good. There's every reason to stay here.
Concerns arose after a market feasibility study the city commissioned found that Portland couldn't support 2 large-scale Broadway-style venues. But Portland State has already secured more than $150 million in funding. We caught up with former Portland City Commissioner Mike Lindbergh as he marched to City Hall with a letter of support for the Keller. He says it's the smarter financial decision for the city.
Building that new one, because of all the infrastructure you have to put in and parking and underground utilities, will probably end up costing $400 million, and if you include the hotel, probably $500 million.
Portland State University has issued a statement saying that they have had multiple conversations about, quote, collaborating on a vision that includes both sites, and we welcome further conversation through the city's defined process. Adding that it's ultimately the city's decision. Mayor Keith Wilson writing in part, quote, we all agree that our city needs a large, successful venue in downtown where the arts can thrive and grow. That's why our former city council mapped out a thoughtful and strategic process driven by both community input and data, including the recent market feasibility study. And Wilson emphasized that no final decisions have been made for the future of the Keller, and at any rate, funding for either location has yet to be finalized. David and Christine?
Yeah, you can understand why people came out. A lot of memories tied to the Keller. Thank you, Jake.